Hello, hi everybody, welcome. We are waiting 2 or 3 minutes just to make sure that everybody is coming. And we are letting people in and we will start in a second. Okay, hi, okay, well, people that coming in and okay, few minutes. And
Mostly.
okay,
Should I move?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Should I move instead?
okay, hi everybody, welcome. Good to see you, all of you. So we are in a first event, Sar El for English speaker. I am Karen. I'm the CEO of Sar El. I started 2 months ago, and it's a great pleasure to meet all of you in person. We are in touch with a few of you by Facebook, by Twitter, by all the ways that we can. And I'm very, very, very exciting to see you now and looking forward to have you in Israel. Before we start with the program of the evening, I want to welcome Colonel Israel Keva, the chairman of Sar El. We have here Major Enav Leket, who is the commander of the unit of Sar El. We have Joanna Arwash, she is the coordinator program of Sar El, and Pascal Berkovich, of course, that she will be the key speaker of the evening. So I will let Israel introduce himself and introduce Sar El, and then we will continue. Toda, Israel.
Thank you, Karen. Shalom and welcome to this meeting. It's a great pleasure to have you and to share with you this session. Bonsoir, Pascal. Je suis très heureux de vous avoir avec nous ce soir.
Merci beaucoup.
Welcome. I'm glad to see the number of participants, most veteran volunteers of Sar El, and some newcomers that show interest to join in the future. First, I must say that we miss you very much and hope to have you again with us soon. A few words for those who have not done the program and have an interest to join Sar El in the future. Sar El was created by the late General Davidi in 1982. Next year, we celebrate 50 years of existence. Since then, about 160,000 people have done the program. Some of them are repeaters and some of them came back for tens of times. This is a unique volunteer experience fostering new friendship, greater understanding and cultural exchange between Israel and the volunteers' home countries. We are the only volunteer program that situates volunteers directly on the IDF basis to work side by side with the soldiers. People come from almost all over the world for 2 or 3 week programs. Please visit our website to see more details. All that we do is done in partnership with organizations or private people from around the world that are devoted and do a tremendous job to promote Sar El and send the volunteers to us. Among them, just for an example, VFI in the United States, Sar El Canada, Sar El France, people that work with us from Australia, New Zealand, England, Holland, Belgium, France, of course, even from Eastern Europe countries like the Czech Republic and Hungary. Now, in these times, as you know, at the COVID time, we are working full time to keep being in touch with our volunteers around the world and with the IDF bases to provide some help with Israeli volunteers or daily participation, work with the IDF to plan future programs, and learn that conditions will be required when program will reopen. We guess that some conditions will be that the armed forces will have to ask to accept the volunteers to the programs. We are learning these conditions and we will let you know as soon as possible when the time comes. We will be, of course, glad with you to share with you this information when we have it, and I hope it will come soon. So we are waiting anxiously to see you again. Until then, as I said, we miss you very much. I wish you good health, and please keep safe. Thank you again for coming. Karen, please proceed.
Thank you, Israel. It's so good to see all of you, as Israel said. I want to let also Major Enav Beckett to say a few words and to welcome you from the field. They are really feeling and missing all of you there, and I would like her to say a few words. Enav?
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everyone. My name is Enav Leket. I am the major of the volunteers, Sar El. Just 4 months. I'm the new, not like Israel, you know. I live in Rosh Hain, but I'm not from Teman. I'm married to Nir. I have a twins, girl and the son, boy and son. And the names is Aviran and Arbel. Before I coming to Sar El, I have an operational jobs. I thought that it's the jobs of my life. And then I get here to Sar El, and I saw what the volunteers do to the army, how they help us to get ready to warm. And it's the best job I had all my life. I get to stay here at least 10 years. So good luck everyone. And thanks to Karen, and thanks to Joanna and Israel for all of this good thing that you are doing. And have a good night, everyone.
תודה רבה, עינב. We have also a special veteran volunteer, Awi Mitchell. He worked with us for a lot of years and helping us a lot here in Israel. And I would be very happy also if you can share with us 2 or 3 things from his experience as a volunteer. Awi?
Hi, everyone. I want to thank Karen for her invitation to say a few words today on behalf of Sar El volunteers everywhere. It's really unbelievable to think that it has been a year since a group of international Sar El volunteers has stepped onto an army base here in Israel. The absence of the volunteers from overseas has been very hard and very sad for everyone connected with this amazing organization. I've been living in Israel now for 12 years, but before that, when I lived in New York and planned a Sar El visit, I remember how much I looked forward to it for months. And I knew that no matter where I was assigned, I would be doing something meaningful to help our beloved IDF and the country that we all love so much. I miss the friends that I have made from countries all over the world, and I miss the camaraderie and the unity of purpose in accomplishing something so important for the IDF. And most especially, I know how much the volunteers miss the interaction with the Chayalim, the opportunity to speak with them, to let them know how much we care and to help raise their morale. There's no question that the absence of volunteers has been felt on bases throughout the country. There are plenty of backlogged projects waiting to be undertaken upon your return. In recent conversations with a number of my friends who are Sar El veterans, I've come to appreciate how much people miss this important and meaningful part of their lives. Sar El's program disruption for the past year has afforded an opportunity for all of us to look back over the past 39 years of Sar El's service to the state of Israel. It's amazing to see how much it has evolved and grown, having welcomed tens of thousands of volunteers from 30 countries to assist our soldiers in so many ways. During these difficult days of the coronavirus, and also at a time of growing anti-Semitism globally, the continuing connection with the Sar El volunteers around the world reminds us that the Jewish people are truly not alone. We Israelis must always remember that we have incredibly committed friends and supporters who are very willing to use their financial resources and their precious vacation time to physically come and help us. I personally know many people who have continued to come year after year. It's really a beautiful thing to see. I believe this is an important time for us to try and stay in touch and strengthen each other as we work to spread the word about this fantastic volunteer program that means so much to all of us. I've been privileged this past year to be able to help Sar El by organizing groups of Israeli volunteers in an effort to complete important logistical work on the IDF bases. With so many who have come from abroad showing their incredible dedication to Israel, how can we as Israeli citizens do any less? In the meantime, let us all hope and pray that we soon move past the global medical crisis so that everyone can resume participation in this extraordinary volunteer program that we all enjoy so much. So stay healthy and stay strong. I hope to see all my overseas Sar El friends here again very, very soon. And I wish you all a happy Purim. Thanks, Karen.
תודה, רועי, thank you. And
you.
now we will continue with Pascal Berkovich, the amazing Pascal, who will introduce our story. So, Pascal.
Good evening, guten Abend, bonsoir. I am Pascal Berkovich. I am an Israeli. I am living in Tel Aviv. I am with my husband and my two daughters, Eden and Mika. I am a Paralympian. I don't know if you all know what is a Paralympian. A Paralympian is a Paralympic athlete. So you all know what is an Olympic athlete, right? An Olympic athlete is an athlete that is working very hard to get to the Olympic Games every 4 years, because we have Olympic Games only every 4 years. And now with the Corona, it's even postponed for 1 more year. So that's what I do. I am a Paralympian. I am an Olympic athlete, but with a disability. A Paralympian is an Olympic athlete with a disability. I myself am sitting in a wheelchair. You cannot see that by the Zoom, so I will go further. I want you to see me. Of course, I will have to shout to, see, look, I am a very, very short person. I am 1 meter high, which is very cute. I'm 44 kilos, mainly muscle. I think this is really, really the cutest thing I could ever imagine, and I'm representing Israel in the Paralympic Games now in Tokyo for the 4th time. I am a kayaker, but all that couldn't happen without Sar El. That's why I'm here today. I am one of the first and youngest volunteer. Of course, I was young when I did it. Okay, it's not now I'm so young, but I was 16 years old and a half, which was the most important thing. I was 16 years old and a half when I participated in the Sar El movement. It was in 84. Yes, I know. You don't need to calculate. I will do it for you. I'm 53 and a half today. Almost. Yeah, no. Actually, I'm 53 3.5. But back then I was 16.5. And when I said to Davide, I want to make the program, he said to me, no, you're too young. You have to be 18. You have to wait. And I couldn't get this answer. And I succeeded in convincing him to take me for the project. And I was the youngest volunteer in Sar El. It was in 84. I was a usual girl. I had legs. I was a normal person. Just the fact I was French, which is a bit not so normal, you know, but no, joking. Nobody's perfect, you know. So the first time I went to this program of Sar El, I was a regular person. I was a 16.5, a young girl, very Zionist, and I made absolutely everything to get in the program. I met then, I had this honor of meeting the General Davidi, who is at the origin of Sar El movement. Because it was the first, you know, it was a real beginning of Sar El. It was like 1.5, 2 years after the real beginning of Sar El. And he was, Davidi, going from base to base to meet by himself all the volunteers and to see what's happening. And when I met him, I told him, look, Davidi, I want to live here in Israel. I want to stay here. I don't want to go back to France. Please help me. And he said to me, I don't know, you're not 18 yet. You have to go back to your family in France, but I will help you to get enrolled in the army. I will help you to be a soldier. And it was the best day of my life, you know. Pascal, I'm going to be a soldier. Of course, I had to wait for 1 year and something, but I was so happy. I came back to France, to my family, to my little life, you know, and waiting for coming to Israel. But I had a train accident. It was on a normal morning, nothing special, just it was very, very cold. It was in winter. It was like 4 months after I came back from Israel from my first time Sar El program, and I was going to school. I was going to high school by train every morning, but this morning really it was really snowy, and I slept on the platform of the train, and you know, the train was before time. And I arrived at the platform, and I understood I'm going to miss the train. And I said to myself, I cannot miss the train. It's impossible. So I decided just to run the fastest I could to catch the train moving. And I succeeded quite well. I caught the train, but then I just slept on the ice. You know, I slept on the ice and found myself flying, absolutely flying. You know, flying like, you know, it was amazing. I liked it very much. But you know, with those movies we like, those action movies, American movies, it always getting well, you know, Bruce Willis and Gal Gadot, they are just flying on trains and doing a lot of acrobatic things, and everything is fine. But it wasn't a movie, it was my life. And I just understood I cannot, you know, keep this way. I mean, catching the train, flying in the air, and the train is moving faster and faster. I'm going to fall, and I don't know what's going to happen to me. So I just decided by my own will, you know, I just decided to open my hand to fall on the platform. I still had a platform under me. So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to fall on the platform. Nothing will happen. It will be okay. I open my hand. Everything is very fast. It's very quick. And I open my hand to fall on the platform. And then what happened, instead of falling on the platform, really, just I was sucked under a train by the, you know, the train is already moving fast. So it's like a vacuum stuff. And just, it sucked me under the train. So as I fall under the train, I had this feeling of the rail, metal rail, freezing, you know, frozen, because it was so cold this morning. I felt this under my neck, and I had this feeling it's not okay, something is bad. And my reflex was to move my body around. And then I put both of my legs instead of my head okay, that was good because I saved my life. That was not good because I lose at this moment, exact moment, I lose both of my legs, because when the wheel arrived to me, it was no other possibility. The wheel just cut off both of my legs. I know it's not nice to hear that story, but I want to tell you it's not hurting a lot. It's not hurting at all, actually. It's a very strange feeling of an earthquake of your body. It's a strange feeling of electrocution of your body. Something strong happened, but you don't feel pain. I didn't feel pain. It wasn't painful. It was just very shocking. And when the train left, I was, lying on the train in between two rails. And when I tried to look at myself, I understood. I just, lost both of my legs. And it was, of course, quite a shock. And I came back lying and I began to scream just to get some help here, And it didn't help me because I was alone. It was very freezing morning, 6 in the morning. It was still dark and I was alone. And there began my little war, private war. I had to keep strong and just wait for somebody to help me. The point is, I had no clue when it will come. This uncertainty was very hard to take, and actually in our lives, we know that. We know that when we know something for sure, it's much, much easier to cope with it. But when we don't know when the next step will happen, what is going to happen, then it's really, really tough to cope. And this is exactly what we have now with the COVID-19 crisis, We never know. We never know what's happening tomorrow. Our governments are deciding a lot of stuff, a lot of things, a lot of new laws, a lot of, decisions they are making. And sometimes it's because they don't know what to do, so they just decide something. It doesn't work, but doesn't matter for them so much. So we have this same, complicated routine of, this complicated life now that we don't know what's going to happen next. And it is exactly what I had there. I was lying in between two rails in the snow, in the dark, alone. And I knew I want to survive, but I was alone. I had to do it by myself. So that's what I did. I had this big clock in front of me on the wall, and I just tried to count the minutes. 1 minute, another minute, and it was always harder and harder. Every minute was longer than the minute before, and every minute was more painful than the minute before, because at the beginning you don't feel pain, but then with the time it was very, very complicated to cope with the pain. But the main thing for me was to cope with the fear. And I can tell you, pain is nothing comparing to fear. Fear is more painful than pain, I think, always. And it was for me a big, big lesson, because I understood that if I have to cope with fear, it's something I can do, And I just did it in a very funny way. I just said to myself, look, you have to survive 1 minute. That's all. And then when I saw this minute is over, I said, okay, now you have to survive 1 more minute. And each minute I told myself, okay, Pascal, you're good. You're good. You survived the minute. Now let's do it again. And it sounds very crazy, but I just stayed there and survived by myself. And I had this, this opportunity to deal with my breathing minute after minute for 47 minutes. 47 minutes I stayed there alone, nobody there, dark, freezing, and I made it. And then people came and helped me. It was a very complicated rescue stuff because of the snow, because of my physical condition. It was very, very complicated. But after like 10 hours. I ended at the hospital. Yes, I know it's a long time. And I get surgery and everything. And I remember being lying on the bed and saying to myself, okay, I remember I was lying on the bed, in the, how do you call it, the ER stuff. And I was looking, they have windows there. You can see everything that is going outside. And of course, everybody can see what's happening in the room. It's for security reason, you're putting there people that are in between life and death. And I was looking at my parents and the doctors and that, and I was reading on their lips, and they were saying everybody that they're not sure I'm going to survive. And I was laughing inside. I said, look, you think the creator gave me the opportunity to fight 47 minutes alone and to stay alive, and then to stay alive during this rescue for 10 hours. And he the creator, he's not going to give me life, but he decided for a long time ago, I should be here for a little bit more time, I should be here for a while. And I was sure I'm going to leave, it was absolutely obvious for me. This was the first thing. And you know what was the second thing? The second thing was, I'm going to live in Israel. I'm going to go for my second program in Sar El. I'm going to be there. I'm going to do exactly what I was planning to do with Davidi, and I'm going to fulfill my dream. That's what I thought. And you know what? Yes, I'm here. That's not amazing. That's amazing. I am always amazing things are happening to me. And this is one of the best things that, it's beyond imagination. Because I was there lying under my bed at the hospital, 3 months after my injury. I had my, those machines around me, and I was with cables and tubes and everything, and this beep, 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 beep around me all the time and stuff like that. And suddenly somebody knocked on my door. Pa, 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 not like, no, ba, 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 almost destroyed my door. You know who it was? General Davidi. Yes, General Davidi. He heard about my accident. He heard about my story. What did he do? He took a plane. We didn't have Zoom by then, We didn't have Zoom. We didn't have smartphones, videos, nothing. So he just, he jumped on a plane to come 3,300 kilometers to see me. And you know what he told me? He told me, Pascal, we wanted to have you in Israel. We wanted to have you in the Israeli army. But now you've lost both of your legs. You're going to be in a wheelchair for your lifetime. And I wanted to tell you, for me, for us, for Israel, it doesn't matter. We don't care. We wanted you because it's you, not because you have legs or don't have legs. I said to Davidi, okay, I had, a date. I had to be for the army. I had to be in July 85 in Israel to join the army. So I told him in July 85, before July 85, I'm coming and I'm going to be in the army. He said, okay, I will help you. So 1 month before this July 85, 6 months after my injury, only 6 months after my accident, I just phoned Davidi home. It was very complicated to phone overseas then from the hospital. It was like, logistic, very complicated stuff, but I succeeded in calling Davidi home. And I remember this moment. Hello, Davidi. He said to me, Ken. I said, could you speak French? Oui. This is Pascal. He said to me, Pascal? I said, yes, Pascal from Paris, Pascal from the hospital. Yes. How are you? How are you doing? Stuff, da, 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 da. I said, I'm coming. What? I'm coming. What? Davidi, I am coming. I told him in 3 languages because he was so stunned. He was so shocked. He couldn't hear that. He said to me, you're joking? I said, no. He said, but how? 6 months after the injury? I said, yes, I'm okay. I have a wheelchair. I have a suitcase. I have $100. I'm coming. This is what I had, I had a small wheelchair, not so small, not so small actually, very heavy, like grandpa wheelchair style. And I had $100 my parents gave me, and I have this little suitcase with some stuff, some clothes. And Davide couldn't believe it. So he sent a friend of him, Colonel Sasson Levy, to check by me in France to see if I'm really coming and if I'm healthy. If he was, And Sasson Levy came and said to me, "What's happening?" I said, "Okay, I'm ready. I'm coming. My plane is tomorrow." And this is how I came to Israel. So they took me from the airport straight to a base, a volunteering base in Julis. It was in Julis, next to Ashkelon. And that's how I began my new life. I'm not French anymore. I'm going to be Israeli. I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm already somebody who is fulfilling her dreams. And I didn't know Hebrew. I had here no family. I didn't know anything about Israel almost. But I learned. I was in the army. I was working, as a volunteer. I am the first volunteer in wheelchair in the Israeli army. By now, every disabled person that asks to join the army in Israel can do it. Blind, one leg or one arm, I mean, anything, everybody. Autistic persons, everybody today can be a part of the army. And it is thanks to Sar El. It is thanks to Davide. And I was the first. I'm so honored. I'm so happy with that, And so being in the army, I learned how to speak Hebrew. I learned what is Israeli music. I learned what is black coffee. If you try to drink it at once, then you have all the stuff in your mouth, and it's really like awful. And I learned what is it to be Israeli, And Davide always checked on me by remote control, asking what's happening with me, if I'm okay, not okay, and stuff like that. I was alone. But very quickly I began to be part of this country and to feel part of this country. And Davide made so much for me. I could speak for 3 hours about it, but one of the things he did, because I was in the army and I was, eating at the dining room with all the soldiers, and I was in my room all the time. I didn't do any sports, so I became very fat. Yes, quite fat. I was growing, I just came out of the hospital. I just came out of my regular life. I suddenly was in Israel, something else, blah, blah, blah. I ate too much and I began fat. And Davide said to me, "Look, this is Davide words. You cannot be fat and disabled. You have to choose or fat or disabled." I thought for a minute, less than a minute, but I thought to myself, okay, disabled, you cannot change it. So he means you have to get thinner. And that's what I did, He took me twice a week to the veteran disabled center to swim. He sent his personal driver from the army to pick me up to the swimming pool twice a week. And I began to swim, and I began to swim well, and I began to swim so well and so fast that they took me for the national team, swimming national team of the disabled. And I began to dream. Okay, my first dream was to be Israeli, to live in Israel, to be in the army, to work for the army. I am here. I did it. So now, what is my next dream? And my next dream became to represent Israel in the Olympic Games. That's not amazing? To represent my small country, the country I choose for the Olympic Games. And I began to work like hell, to train 3 times a day and to swim and stuff. And I wanted to go to Barcelona 92, Olympic Games. But after a while, I left the army and I didn't have any place to stay. I didn't have food. I didn't have anything. I was alone. And my coach, swimming coach, she told me, look, Pascal, that's really nice to train so much. That's amazing. But you have to eat. You have to work. So please try to find another dream. I was very sad, but that's what I did. I put my little dream of the Olympic in one of the corner of my heart, one of the corners of my heart, and I began to be a journalist. I was a quite successful journalist. I worked everywhere: CBS, Deutsche Welle in Germany, Kappa in France. I was all over the world. It was amazing, full of adrenaline, and I had good life. My first daughter was born, and then age 40, I had this opportunity to try a new sport and to try to train hard to get to the Olympic Games. The rowing team told me, look, you want to try rowing maybe? Maybe you could be good. Maybe you could come with us to the Olympic Games. When they said Olympic Games, I remember that age 20, I had this dream. And I said, you know what? Let's go and try that. So I began to train. I had 13 months to get the qualification for the Olympic Games. I don't know if you know how it works, but it's not enough to be the Israeli champ. You have to be in the 10 best athletes in the world to get to the Olympic Games. It depends on the sport. Yes, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 15, but you have to be really at the top of the world, not the top of Israel. Top of Israel is cool, but it's not enough at all. So I worked very hard and I succeeded. Everybody told me it's impossible. You cannot do it. You're too old. You're too much of a mother. You're too thin. You're too anything. I said, you know what? I don't know. You're right. Everything is true. But I want to try because I know, and I was taught by Davidi, that a dream is worth anything, everything. So I just worked hard and I get my qualification to Beijing 2008 in rowing. I finished there 8th and I was so happy to represent Israel, to fulfill my dream. But I felt so amazed by this adventure that I decided to continue. And that's how I represented Israel again in London 2012, this time in biking, hand biking. And then I represented Israel again in Rio de Janeiro in 2016 in kayak. I am the first person, first athlete in the world that represented a country in 3 Olympic Games in 3 different sports. That's funny, no? Because always, like, when I have a dream, I go for it. And now I am still training in kayak, which is my favorite sport. I'm training 2 times a day, every day except Shabbat. And I will represent Israel, Bezrat Hashem, in Tokyo 2021. We hope we'll have the Olympic Games to participate to. And if we postpone it to 2022, I promise you that I will keep the hard work till then, because this time I really want to bring Israel a medal. This is my new dream. Something says to me that it may happen. It could happen. It's very important for me to be here with all of you because we share something very, very, very important. And this is the Sar El movement. And it's very important for me to say movement because I think it's more than a group of people and it's more than a lot of things. It's a movement. It's, you know, it's a way of being connected to Israel. It's a way of looking at the Jewish people in a certain way. And I have to say that when I joined Sar El, I wasn't Jewish. No, My father is Jewish, was Jewish, Zichrono Livracha. He is now looking at us from the sky, from above. But my father was Jewish, but my mother wasn't Jewish, and I wasn't recognized as a Jewish person. So when I came to Israel, Sar El said to me, look, we don't need you to be Jewish. You feel you like Israel, that is all. That is what we need. We don't need anything else. And it's also something very, very important for me to say because it's not obvious at all. So for me, Sar El is it's more than a family. It's more than an inspiration. It's more than a home. It's a movement. It's something that is part of me and builded me when I was so young and full of passion. But you know, it helped me to to put all this passion to the right direction. I just forgot completely. I wanted to show you some. Joanna is laughing because she's waiting to push the button, and I wanted to see you two small clips, and I totally forgot because I'm so impressed and moved by you. But do we have the time to show 3 minutes? Karen, we have time? 3 minutes?
Yeah, we can see, of course, the movie of the 3 minutes, of course.
Okay, so in 2014 I was honored again because I was asked to enlight the torch, what Davidi did years ago during the official ceremony of the independence of Israel. It was you will see the movie now, 3 minutes. I cut all the person that were before and after me because we don't have the time. It's a very long ceremony, but it's very important for me that if you can, if you know Hebrew, to listen to what I say, and if you know English, to read the subtitles, because you will. I think it's also for you.
שחר פאר ופסקל ברקוביץ'. פסקל ברקוביץ' היא ספורטאית פראלימפית שהייתה למקור השראה ולסמל למצוינות. בסיפור חייה שזורים חסד, גבורה וניצחון הרוח. פסקל הייתה נערה בצרפת כשבאחד הימים בדרכה לבית הספר דרסה אותה רכבת, שתי רגליה נקטעו אז. למרות התאונה הגשימה את חלומה, עלתה לארץ והתגייסה לצה"ל. מאז פסקל ממשיכה להגשים חלום אחר חלום. היא כתבה רבי מחר, הקימה משפחה, והיום היא מרצה בחברות ובארגונים גדולים. פסקל עוסקת שנים בספורט אתגרי ומדורגת במקום הרביעי בעולם בטיפוס ספורטיבי על קירות. בגיל 40 חזרה להיות ספורטאית אולימפית וייצגה את ישראל בהצלחה פעמיים בחתירה בקייק ובאופני יד. בימים אלה היא מתאמנת לקראת אולימפיאדת ריו 2016. פסקל ברקוביץ', בכבוד.
אני פסקל ברקוביץ', בת לוז ברניה ויהודה ברקוביץ', רעיה לעוז סקופ ואם לעדן ולמיקה, מתכבדת להשיא משואה זו לכבוד עמיתיי הספורטאיות והספורטאים הנכים המסמלים מסע מופלא ומשמשים מורי דרך לרבים, לכבוד הספורט והתנועה כדרך חיים וניצחון, לכבוד הכוח האדיר של האדם הגובר על כל מגבלותיו, לכבוד המתנדבים והתורמים בנתינה טהורה ובהם מי שסייעו לי לעלות לארץ ומלווים אותי מאז, ובראשם תת-אלוף אהרון דוידי, זכרו לברכה. לנשים בישראל, לכבוד החופש לבחור את החיים שהן מבקשות לעצמן, כל אחת בדרכה. לכבוד האימהות בישראל, מטפחות גם משפחה וגם עשייה. לכבוד החולמים הגדולים שחותרים להגשים את חלומם לעתים כנגד כל הסיכויים. לכבוד הנר הבוער בכל אחד מאיתנו המבקש להאיר בטוב את העולם כולו. ולתפארת מדינת ישראל.
Thank you, Joanna. She is our great technician. I want to thank you all for this opportunity, and thank you, Keren and Israel and Hovi and everybody. Thank you very much. Just have fun, and we'll meet soon, I hope. Thank you,
Thank you,
Pascal,
Pascal.
thank you so much. I don't know if you see it, but everybody is applauding and they're all on mute, so we cannot hear it. But Mamash, you are an inspiration for all of us, and you taught us that there is no boundaries that we cannot break. So, toda
Thank you.
raba 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 for being
More
with us
stuff
tonight.
about me. If you want to see more stuff about me, you can Google me, Pascal Berkovich, and you can see a lot of stuff I do and be in touch with me. And thank you very much for your kind and amazing words on the chat. Thank you.
And of course, we will also put this video on the website of Sar El and in the YouTube of Sar El, and we will be able to see it again. Toda raba, Pascal.
Thank you.
And we are continuing now with Dr. Zohar Raviv, VP of Educational at Taglit Birthright Israel, and a dear friend of mine, and he accepted to come this evening and to share also his perspective. And I'm very happy to give him the speech. Zohar, toda raba.
Thank you, Karen, and hello, everyone. Although I cannot see anybody on the screen besides Karen and Pascal, I want to say that it's first of all a great honor to speak on behalf of Sar El, and second that it's quite a humbling experience to speak after a formidable woman such as Pascal. I had the honor of listening now for the last 15 minutes of her presentation, which I found to be truly a humbling experience and a true sign of the triumph of spirit over body. So Pascal, your photo is frozen in my computer, but I hope you hear me when I say kol hakavod, and truly an honor to meet you and listen to you. At Karen's request, I would like to share with you very briefly, because I know you've been on Zoom now for nearly an hour, a few of my thoughts regarding the assets and challenges of Jewish and Israel education in the 21st century, and respectful of your time and your patience, I'll do it in very broad strokes, and as a means to hopefully plant some thoughts in your mind as citizens of the world, as people who live in your respective countries, and as part of a community who shares both this world, this reality, and a love or interest in Israel and the Jewish world. And I've been in the field of education for the majority of my adult life. I've been an academic and a scholar for many years, both here in Israel and in the United States and in Australia. And for the past 11 years, I've had the honor of working for Birthright Israel as their VP of Education. Within that period, I had the honor of meeting and working with Karen Dan, who now leads Sar El. And I can tell you that from my perspective, as someone who works with young adults, namely in the ages of 20 to almost 30, 35, the world has undergone tremendous changes in the past couple of decades, of which we need to be aware of as human beings, as intelligent human beings, but also as educators who have whatever mandate it is to transmit and to assist the younger generation in becoming or in fulfilling their potential. And I think that when we talk about fulfilling one's potential, Pascal showed us quite a remarkable example of what the human can achieve once he or she sets their mind towards. So I'll start by saying that, in my humble opinion, the mandate of education, and when I say education, I mean every program that is value-based and aims to really transform people rather than just to inform them. The goal of any educational enterprise, in my opinion, is to teach people how to think and not what to think. And there is a great distinction between those two. When you teach people how to think, by giving them or assisting them in achieving tools that will offer them opportunities to become more sophisticated, careful, critical thinkers, you're helping humanity and you're helping the educational cause. When you're teaching people what to think, you're a manipulator at best. So education's role is to teach people how to think and not what to think. What people think is their own business, none of mine. How to think is definitely my business in terms of education. And in that respect, I can tell you that my observations, and not only mine, but that my observations about the world in which we live, and I know that there are representatives of a score of countries in this Zoom chat. There are two challenges that I find that seem to plague the Western world, developed countries, liberal countries, environments that supposedly should celebrate freedom of thought and freedom of speech and freedom of expression and all the things that all of us hold dear to our hearts. And there are two challenges that seem to present themselves in a manner that requires serious thought on our part as citizens of the world and as people who also engage, in our case, in Jewish and Israel education and experiences. Number one, and I see it all over the place, and what I'm about to say, I want to be very clear on it, is not a judgment, but rather an observation. I don't judge, I merely observe, is that we seem to operate in a world these days that demonstrates an inverse relationship between very high levels of access to information on the one hand, and a much lower ability to engage knowledge in depth. In other words, we exist in a world today where more and more people surf and don't dive anymore. And if you think about this act of surfing, which I think is a great sport, but if you think about the inner logic of surfing, when you surf in the ocean, a surfer is attracted only to whatever it is that makes waves. And that is also true on the mental and psychological levels of surfing in today's reality. The world in which we live seems to me to perpetually creating waves for the consumption of the average surfer. We live from one wave to the next, from one wave to the next, with little to no regard to the bigger ocean which creates those waves to begin with. In other words, people skip or skid over waves without much adherence to the ocean. In that respect, when people surf, they lose sight of two things that are profoundly important for any meaningful quest for meaning and any true quest for wisdom. Number one is context, the ability to understand the fuller picture, or as the ocean. And second, of course, is complexity, the complexity of every given scenario that is the tribute of true engagement with the subject matter. Once you really engage with a certain subject matter, you start understanding the complexity that is inherent to it. That is true to every subject matter. It's definitely true also to the Jewish world and to understanding, studying, or experiencing Israel. The second challenge, which climbs on top of the first one, as if the first one is not enough, and that is a challenge that we see all the way from the grassroots level, the street discourse, and all the way to the highest levels of leadership sometimes, is you see, we find an alarming disparity between low levels of knowledge and very high levels of opinion. In other words, we are often bombarded by a discourse that is governed by people who seem to have a lot to say about things they know very little about, if at all. And I remember on my last visit to the States a year ago, before the COVID-19 erupted, I was in a hotel in Manhattan, and I happened to open the Wall Street Journal, and I saw a fantastic cartoon there, which kind of encapsulates what I just said. It showed two senators arguing with one another over an issue. And then one of them, in the heat of the debate, said to the other, "And don't get me started on issues I know even less about." In other words, we live in an era where a lot of people have a lot to say, have very strong opinions about things they don't necessarily know about, let alone in context and with due complexity. In that respect, when I engage with others about Israel, about Judaism, about the relationship between Jews and non-Jews, between Jews and Israel and the and its non-Jewish minorities, between Israel and its Arab neighbors, my first understanding is that today's educational currency, the main currency of education in the 21st century, is going to become less and less about content and more about context. Because truth be told, in the 21st century, they definitely don't need me or any other educator for content, because they have this. They have Google for content. What they lack, and sometimes the social media cannot provide in an adequate manner, is really context and complexity. And that also goes and it affects the way I approach Israel education and my desire to offer people an engagement with Israel that is based on context and complexity. So 2 points that I want to make on that issue by way of wrapping up, because I want to remain loyal to the time allotted to us tonight. Number one, if you think about it, people who surf around the world, people who surf and are interested in Israel on a surfing level, it is pretty reasonable to say that most of the data or the information that they will get about Israel on a daily basis, if at all, relates to Israel's geopolitical reality, its relations with the Arab countries, its relations, the reality with the Palestinians, conflicts, and so on and so forth, all of which are very important issues. However, those issues do not encapsulate the entirety of Israeli life or the entirety of the Israel experience. So for us, and Sar El is one program that does that very effectively, when we try to expand the canvas of Israel education or Israel experience beyond the conflict, we need to target other venues of interaction with Israel that do not necessarily revolve only around those issues that I mentioned before. And lo and behold, one of the most incredible things that anyone who actually visits Israel comes out of is the amazing, quote unquote, discovery that Israel is in fact a normal country. In other words, Israel is a country, a live and kicking entity where people live and they deal with a host of issues like any other part of the world. And they don't wake up every morning thinking about the conflict, thinking about Jewish identity, thinking about Zionism, thinking about Aliyah. These are all incredible issues and very important issues, but they do not encapsulate Israel's existence in its entirety. So one of the incredible things about Israel education is its ability, and such programs such as Sar El, Birthright, and others, is their ability to offer people opportunities to experience Israel on a daily, non-dramatic basis. I call it the thrust of the mundane, the thrust of the routine, the ability to actually engage in daily life, and by doing so, finding meaning and relevance in Israel beyond its landmark historical achievements and so much, and so much more dramatic things. This notion, the thrust of the mundane, the thrust of the trivial, the thrust of the routine, also, in my opinion, saturates itself or manifests itself in Sar El itself. I have a good knowledge of Sar El. I can tell you that I visited some of the numerous times. I visited some of the bases where Sar El volunteers had been part of the daily life. And one of the incredible things that I found, which vindicates what I just said, is that the Sar El volunteers and many others who came into contact with the soldiers, with the base, and with Israeli society, found that the most incredible thing about what they did was that it actually not the army and the grandeur and the might and the power, but actually that they had the ability to come to terms with Israelis on eye-to-eye level and find that behind the uniform, behind the acronym IDF, behind this grandeur of truly a phenomenal army, there are human beings. It's a throbbing pulse of a living nation, which brings me to the last point. As Hawaii just wrote, it's all about people. Very true. Which brings me to the last point. And I think that Pascal's presentation was spot on what I'm about to say. One of the things that bothers me the most in terms of the Jewish people and the state of Israel is sometimes what I identify as the gap between our story and our narrative. And I'll explain what I mean. As an Israeli, as a proud Israeli, a proud Jew, someone who loves the Jewish people and loves the world entire, Jews and non-Jews alike, I think that I am proud to belong to the Jewish people because the Jewish people have perpetually demonstrated an inverse relationship in history between numbers and impact. It's a small nation with a big impact. It is a people who made it their business to contribute or to try to contribute to almost any imaginable field of human curiosity and innovation. It is even Israel, the country, has achieved tremendous achievements in merely 73 years of existence. We have a great story. It is a story of contribution. It is a story of tikkun olam. It is not a perfect story. Far from it. Far from it. But lo and behold, there isn't such a thing as a perfect story. There isn't such a thing as a perfect people. There isn't such a thing as a perfect country. But it is a great story. In other words, my friends, Israel is a state of ideals, but not an ideal state. And we have a great story to tell as the Jewish people. It is a positive story. It is a story of values. It is a story of affirmative action. It is a story of trying to put our thumbprint on the envisioned trajectory of humanity. It is a story that we should be proud of. Alas, a lot of the times, the narrative of the Jewish people does not necessarily pay tribute to that story. Because many times, and I want to be brutally honest because we're all family, many times our narrative is focused on a narrative of victimization, a narrative of persecution, a narrative of bloodshed, a narrative of war, a narrative that does not pay full justice to our story. We need, as a people, we need as a nation to rethink our narrative in a manner that pays justice to our story. That means not to take our tragedies and turn them into the backbone of our narrative, but rather to remember, commemorate, learn, study our tragedies, and we have had many tragedies throughout our appearance on the world stage, but put them in the context of a living Jewish people in a living and positive Jewish legacy. In other words, my friends, when we talk about identity as Jews, we have to understand that one cannot sustain a healthy Jewish body on a perpetual diet of tragedies. That is why programs such as Sar El, Birthright, and others aim to systematically reimagine our narrative in a manner that pays greater tribute to the contributions and the achievements of the Jewish people rather than their tragedies and catastrophes. Again, contextualizing the whole story in a manner that truly warrants pride and dignity. So I'll end by saying that first of all, I'm delighted that you invited me here. Second, I am honored to have heard such a remarkable woman as Pascal. Your presence in this conversation from all over the world is far from taken for granted. I want to thank, of course, my dear friend and colleague, Keren, for honoring me with this opportunity. If there is only one thing that I'm sorry about is our inability to sit face to face and actually look each other in the eyes. But one day, Be'ezrat Hashem, this will happen as well. And remembering together that as long as we perceive Israel as a state of ideals and ideals rather than an ideal state, we're more prone to have a mature approach to this incredible country in a dignified manner of contributing not only to it, but allowing it to contribute to our own personal and collective trajectory as a Jewish people. God bless you all, and thank you very much.
תודה רבה רבה זוהר. Thank you so much for sharing this inspiring word. So we are now in the end of the evening. and the question that I saw that came back in the chat during all the evening, and when the program will reopen again. This is all the questions that we are looking for. So as you know, the borders are still closed for people from abroad, but we are now, a lot of us are vaccinated, and I think that there is a good hope that soon things will come back to normal. And so stay in touch in our Facebook, in our website, in the newsletter. We are doing amazing things. We are doing a lot of posts. You are going to see that we are doing this Wednesday a big mishte of Purim to the soldier. We are going to give mishlochei manot in the bases, telling to the soldier, I from your names. So keep in touch and hope to see you soon. And stay healthy. Toda rabba for joining us tonight. And thank you to Pascal and Israel and Zohar and to all of you. Bye-bye.